Prepare for liftoff, sir.
Awesome, awesome.
We are live. How awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Sorry about the delay. That was on my part, technical difficulties, doing the virtual thing in the background and then trying to figure out how to stream it. Done it before. For some reason today, a little difficult. But either way, glad you could be here. And we are super excited to have our friend Kaleef Williams here, who is going to be dropping some knowledge on what it is like and to be a real estate investor. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of good stuff today. So let's just hop right into it. I know you.
Mm-hmm.
Our audience out here doesn't know you as well as we do. So while we're giving them a chance to sign in, let's talk about you. Who is Kaleef Williams? Where do you live? What are you doing?
Awesome, awesome. Again, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, for sure. As Joe said, my name's Kaleef Williams. I am currently a resident of Detroit, Michigan. But interestingly, we connected, and it's Detroit, Michigan by way of Rochester, New York. So that's where I was born and raised, and kind of throughout the years, this is where I ended up now, currently. I actually got started in real estate investing. I mean, part-time back in 2018. The top of 2018 is when I actually took a swing at it.
Over 2 years now.
Yep. This is starting year 3 for me. I got introduced to a concept called wholesaling back in 2016, but as I'm sure with most newbies or people that are throwing the idea around, I had a lot of things in life I felt like that needed more attention than delving into this. And, you fast forward to now 4 years later, I wish I started 2 years earlier, right?
Always the case.
But for sure. And, the good news I have for you guys is that there's more than enough deals for even us 3 to do. So start now. You'll definitely love yourself for it when you get it figured out, over the next year or 2.
That's great advice. Yeah. Thank you.
For sure. I believe it was the end of February 2018. I kind of found a class on Eventbrite, not even looking for a free 6-week house flipping course. And I figured, what do I have to lose? It's free.
Right.
It was a profit sharing, which means if I was able to generate leads and it resulted into a deal, me and the person that was actually running the course would split the deals 50-50 because he would help me close it. So got through that course. It was 6 weeks. I didn't get any deals closed in that 6-week period, but that turned into essentially a mentorship, which progressed after the course with the same deal structure. Completed that class in March, and by June I did my first wholesale deal, and it was it's like $2,800, and that was the best $2,800 I've ever made in my life. Didn't have to punch a clock for it. Mm-hmm. I think a total of my time invested into that deal may have been like 2 or 3 hours from initially contacting the client, or excuse me, the seller, all the way to closing. So
you're making like $900 an hour in that deal.
Yeah, it was nuts. And the deal actually came from.
Real quick, you didn't give up, right?
No.
So you did the course and nothing came from that, but then you kept going. And I think that's something like anybody watching or listening needs to hear, because so often we get discouraged, right? Oh, it didn't happen as quickly as I thought or wanted, but you just gave it a little bit more time. And like you said, you spent not that much time on this lead, but holy cow.
Yeah.
In that 6 weeks though, you germinated that seed in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You were working it, and then next thing you know, that seed doesn't come sprouting out of the earth on day 1. So obviously nope. 6 weeks into it, nothing, but you still stuck to what you were taught, did what it is, and then guess what? You look through that soil and here comes the benefit, right? So.
And for sure. And what's even more powerful, when I put myself back there, I did that 6-week course with 30 people. And at the end of 6 weeks, I was the only one left.
Wow.
So that just gives you an idea on it. You got to be extraordinary, it's just like you guys said, I waited it out and it happened. Everybody had reasons why, life comes up, especially when you're trying to do something great. And I looked around the room and I was the only one left, So it'll happen for you. It's just kind of on the timing, just so you said, when that seed's ready to be harvested, you can make it happen.
Yeah. Every time I talk to you, they always get goosebumps.
I did too.
Yeah. I'm telling you guys, if you're not following Kaleef on Facebook, Instagram, all of these places, he is like one of the most wonderful people to follow. Tons of great motivational, inspirational. He's a credit guru. Guys, I spent 15 years in the credit office knowing stuff. And I thought I was king of the hill. And then he's run some game on me on some stuff to where my jaw hit the ground. So if he is more multi-talented than you would even imagine. So that's really, really cool. And you're a young gun too. So I mean,
yeah, I just turned 32 on Sunday.
Yeah, happy birthday. I wanted to chat about that.
Thank you.
So he's a youngin' and crushing the real estate game. So that's really exciting. So let's talk about that first deal that you did. How did you get that first deal?
So that first deal, I actually bought a couple of lists and stacked them. So that lead was an absentee list. So the owner didn't live in the house.
Yep.
And I stacked it with the fact that the owner didn't live in the house and that it was listed vacant as well.
Ooh.
So that was a good list to market to, just being, in my mind, the owner wasn't making any money. There wasn't a tenant there. He had to keep utilities on, keep the water going, to make sure the pipes didn't burst or anything like that. So it's kind of like a money pit for him.
So guys, we do lists. If you didn't just write that down, I'm not going to have to tell you again, guys, but it was that good. You need to listen to this stuff, because those lists right there, that's super powerful too, because it's not just about writing letters and finding lists. It's about getting the right list. And maybe you don't have as many leads on that as you would more of a more broader list. However, that's a lot more narrowed down, and you don't need to do thousands and thousands of letters if you have 400 or 500 real good
targeted lists.
And that's really targeted. So I like that a lot. That's great.
Good list.
Yeah.
It was a great list. It was vacant. The seller didn't live there, and I actually, sent him a postcard. He responded, that he got my postcard. And then I just delved in to fact finding, because I learned through the coursework that it's not so much about, wholesaling and flipping houses more than it is, finding these people that have a problem that you can solve. And then the byproduct of that ultimately is there's a house attached that you can flip, to make profit. But first you got to solve that person's problem.
Right.
This person kind of had a few layers of problem. One, the house needed, full updating if he wanted market value for it, which he wasn't wanting to do. Next, again, he was renting it. The last renters stuck him on rent and didn't pay him, for over 6 months, and then kind of just disappeared one day.
Wow.
And then lastly, he personally lived an hour away from the property. So just the commute to kind of maintain it for him was a bit too much. So I found that if I could, solve his problems in that way, we could make some things happen.
Well, and obviously what you did a great job is identifying the issue. A lot of investors who get into real estate, the first thing they want to do is just start throwing out offers.
Numbers.
And it's all about the number, where you did a great job of finding out what the situation was. Yep. And therefore, how can I be the best fit to help in that situation? And that's really key, because if you were just going to go out there and, gunning out numbers, who knows what would even happen? He might have been completely turned off by it, but by your demeanor and asking the right questions, learning more about him and his situation.
Those are three major problems too for any homeowner, to have an empty house an hour away.
Needs repairs.
And then had tenants, and now they're gone, and oh my goodness. So he was just probably ready he or she was ready to just be done.
Oh yeah, he's ready. He was ready to be done with it. It was he actually grew up in the home as a child, and it was left to him. Mm-hmm. And I believe it was him and two other siblings that owned the house, but he was the one that obviously was taking the charge on it. which is another key. I know some gurus out here tell you not to look to LLCs because they may be doing the same thing you're doing. This guy formed an LLC just for the fact that him and his two other siblings can have ownership on it. So it was in the name of an LLC, but he by no means was a flicks and flipper landlord or any of those things. So, those are things to take a good thing to take a second look at, which I did. And I'm glad I did, because it ended up being, a guy that needed help.
Right. Yeah. Because what happens a lot of times, guys, just to kind of touch on what Kaleef's talking about, when you're figuring out your list, sometimes they're going to look for, maybe it's got to be titled to, John Smith. But if it was deeded to a LLC, a lot of gurus say, oh, well, that's probably, a retail or, landlord, or they do fix and flips and all this and that.
Company, don't bother.
And, maybe it's a guy who's got one house.
Yep.
I'll be quite honest with you. If you're doing real estate investing, if you've got one house, get an LLC.
Yeah, it's actually the smart way to do it.
It's a must, and there's a lot of people out there, because, there's so many different ways of, getting your voice out there now more than it is ever. And so many people will talk about, what's working for them, but you really got to be careful of who you're listening to, because there's a lot of people out there who probably don't know any better, but they don't intentionally give out poor advice. And, an LLC is just a great example of that.
Yeah.
So you found that through the LLC, owned through the family, and that's a good way of doing it. And, obviously reached out because of you marketing to him, had an issue, you figure out what the issues are. So what was the point like? So you identify that, you guys work out the numbers. Obviously it made sense for both of you guys. How long did it take you to find a buyer for that?
So with that, the promise that came with the 6-week course, that if the property wasn't in the city of Detroit proper, because it's a little bit tricky because honestly, in the city of Detroit, there's only pockets that are favorable that investors want to come into, not the whole city. So, my mentor said, if we're outside of the Detroit city proper, he already had a buyer's list that if I found something in the suburban areas, that he would have a buyer for me within 14 minutes. So that's my face in the course. I'm like, okay, let's see.
Okay.
Why so long?
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
So I was just like, okay, well, I know that's probably faster than I can find one. So I sent the lead to him. I sent him pretty much the breakdown of the lead as I just gave you guys. He said it looks like a good deal, and he sent it out, and we had multiple interest. I mean, within an hour, I'd say, of him sending out the marketing piece to have a buyer. So we had a buyer pretty much the same day.
Wow.
Incredible.
So that's the power of having a good list, guys. A good buyer's list.
Yeah.
And
having somebody to work with, mentoring you too, the
Yeah.
new ropes, to have those people in place, because it's not always as easy as that. I mean, sometimes it is, but in that case, he knew what he was doing there.
So, and I think part of your success was, like you said, you had somebody that you could bounce the deals back and forth from. You already structured it, had it already worked out, but then, helping on the disposition side, you already had something in place, which you were smart. You were working with somebody who had a buyer's list, if you don't already. Or a lot of folks, I see one of the mistakes they make all the time is they're going to go into a group and they're going to say, hey, drop your email address if you want to get on my buyer's list. And everybody's going to drop their email in there, but you don't really know who's other wholesalers or who are actually cash buyers. You got to weed them all out.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to get a buyer's list, I always found, get a deal. Get a deal under contract. Get a really good deal under contract. Guys, we live 3.5 hours from Albany. We got a deal under contract. I didn't know any buyers in Albany. I didn't have to talk to anybody else. I put the deal out there and my phone wouldn't stop ringing.
Spoke for you.
Guess what happened? I have now formed my buyer's list. And the minute I have a deal anywhere in that general area, I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4 people I could call and have it sold like this. I mean, there's the guys who bought this house from us. They do a lot of deals. So it worked out well. So it's great you had somebody to reach out with and work with on that. And then obviously you got paid.
Yeah, and I just found the check. I have some of them archived. So it was the 26th of June, and since it was profit sharing, right? So I actually got $1,840. But since it was profit sharing, the total assignment fee was $3,680.
Oh,
So
wow.
almost, $4,000.
Yeah.
Again, for maybe 2-3 hours of time from, meeting with the seller, talking to him on the phone and walking the buyer through. It
So,
took more time for the.
but and I'll tell you what, a lot of times I always say if it's a comma check, if it's a check that has a comma in it, that's always a great thing. And so you used to walk away with something, your partner walked away with something, you solved the seller's problem. Obviously, you helped out a buyer who's looking for a good deal, and you probably provided them with one, something that they could have hire some guys now or girls to, get that house turned around. All those contractors, there's probably going to be a realtor or renting involved. So there's a lot of other people that get hired throughout the process that are all benefiting from that. So just by you thinking of a good list to mail to and doing the right thing is once you put those seeds out there by dropping the mail, somebody reaches back out to you. You had to pick up the phone and call that guy. Now, was that scary?
Um, yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, just for the fact, I think now with a little bit more experience, was back then just being fearful they would say no. And that's all that I was looking to, not the other side of it of, being able to solve their problems and, pretty much knowing that I'm the one-stop shop and the best option for them. Um, Definitely fearful, when you send out those postcards and the phone starts ringing, who's ready for that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
It's like you're
Easy
following
government now, but we're
you're
not
right.
going.
The phone starts ringing. You're like, do I answer on the first call? And you answer one, then somebody else is calling in. So that's the part they don't tell you about is once you drop them the postcard, within a week, your phone's going to be blowing up. So what's the game plan for that?
Right.
yeah. And you got to be very mindful of how many you're going to drop at a time. You go drop 1,000 at a time, your phone's going
Better
to
have an answering
blow
service.
up. If you drop maybe 200 a week, or however time, space them out a little bit more, it's sometimes not as overwhelming.
So
But that's great.
that's a great lesson, for people wanting to come in is just be mindful of how many marketing pieces you're sending out because if you don't have that phone volume, kind of the way I was trained, if you're not getting back with these people and making, at least a first touch within first 10 minutes or so, you got to have the mindset they're going somewhere else.
Exactly.
And this is the whole cup of coffee theory we have.
Time.
If I could brew a cup of coffee and put it down, if that thing gets cold, that your seller is going to be the same way about the deal. You
Yeah.
just so they say in the old business, time kills deals. So obviously, like you learned, is being very mindful of that. So that was a wholesale deal. So I guess I want to hear about your creative finance deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously, you guys can see the name up above.
Yeah, that's how you got
but-
started. And then as you got going here, you learned that there's a couple other tricks to add to the bag.
And I got to reach
sure.
out. Before we go here, I was listening to a podcast one day, and Kaleef was doing an interview. He was actually being interviewed on there about his successes in real estate. And I'm listening to him. I'm like, man, this guy sounds fantastic. I need to reach out to him. I didn't know him from Boo. All I know is I was listening to him. He sounded great. And he was from Detroit. So I knew that was kind of cool too. So I find him on Facebook. We end up messaging each other back and forth. We get on a phone call over the summer and we start chatting, and I tell him I'm in Rochester. He tells me he's from Rochester. I couldn't believe it. Then he tells me that I tell him I live in Greece. He says, I'm from Greece, which is the town I live in. I was like, he went to high school and like right in our yard almost. So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable that we linked up, not knowing
Small
any of these
world.
things, but yet he was from here. Maybe that's just why it's a Rochester thing. So I
Yeah.
felt a vibe coming from
Instant
you.
connection.
Yeah, for sure.
So we started chatting over the summer about just deals in general. And, we kind of dove into creative finance because I like that. He was working on that kind of stuff too. And so I want to hear about that first creative finance deal because it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So this deal was, I believe, a Facebook lead sponsored deal that came across from the same gentleman I partnered with. And we had kind of evaluated to be a wholesale deal and where the numbers needed to be. And after evaluating it, the seller pretty much wanted market value for the house. So there's no room to wholesale it.
So the numbers
kind of
for a wholesale deal.
Exactly. And in our partnership, kind of that's my role is, you know, the leads that come in are to be wholesaled. If not, we push them to be listed through an agent. Um, you know, if he can't get the listing, it's kind of a dead lead. So I kind of was getting some information on other creative styles on getting these deals closed that most investors pass over. But I just got a surface level understanding. I read a book about it, and I ran it past Joe after we kind of got together. He's like, man, this is what I do all day, every day. So, you know, I got accurate breakdown of the deal on, you know, what market value could be worth. I evaluated could conservatively be worth about 140 grand. And I delved into the seller's problem. Joe kind of coached me to see, you know, what's more important, money or, you know, speed of sale and what you got going on that the house is tying you from. And for him, luckily in my favor, it was how quick I could get the deal done for him. That was more important than him getting all his money up front. So we were able to talk. The guy owed close to $90,000 on the mortgage still. And we came to the number about 20 grand is what he needed out of the deal in its entirety, no matter how that looked. So we kind of worked it out and agreed that he would be able to do 5 grand up front. That would get him relocated. He was actually looking to relocate to Texas. So that got him relocated. And then the rest could come to him on the back end when we decided to sell the house. So we wrote that up, got it to a title company that kind of understood what we were looking to do. And we were able to get it closed. And, you know, I made the mistake, sorry, Jenn, of bringing my wife in. It was move-in ready. She loved it. She was like, we're keeping this one.
Don't waste time.
Yeah, funny. And you know,
So
they say the story, happy wife, happy life. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, we came in and she did her thing, kind of with designing. We redid the first full bath, redid the living room, painted throughout. You know, we were able to do our first home creatively, which was a huge blessing because literally 2 weeks before that, we got denied on the house we were looking to get traditionally through financing because I was a real estate investor. They were scared that I may use it as an investment property, so they didn't want to take on that risk.
Right.
And then this lead came. I got with you, you know, to get some coaching on it. And was able to get it across the finish line. But just like I said, I wouldn't have had the eyes for it, you know, had I not kind of ran it by you. And, you know, you give me pretty much what is now the creative finance playbook, right, to be able to make it happen, even down to the paperwork, as far as how to buy it so that I'm able to live in it personally versus it being an investment property, which, you know, that right there, once I ran it past my lawyer, saved me about 2 grand for them to draft me up one. So again, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's the one thing about creative finance, which is great. That's how we're going to find our next home, is the same way. And the neat thing about it is once you understand this, most investors buy their next house this way that they're personally going to move into. And like what you said, it's dangerous when you buy a really nice house and you bring your wife to it, because I know that she's going to walk through it one day.
How do you think I have my hands in every deal? I'm looking.
Yeah. But that's kind of the fun thing about it. So, man, that's what a story that is. Your first deal, creative finance. And not only is it a great deal, but it's a deal that you're going to be able to move into and then live in it. And then here's the neat thing about that deal. Maybe you decide you want to put it on the market because the market's hot and you want to buy something else. Maybe this is the house you're going to live in for the next who knows many years. Like, that's the neat thing about it. Now, when you made that deal, did you have to go to a bank and get a mortgage?
No.
So did you have to like beg the guy for it and like promise him all these like wonderful things? Or did you have to just give him 5 grand and tell him you're going to make payments to him?
Nope. I just had to show up and made sure he showed up to closing, and, you know, handed him a cashier's check. And that was the end of that. Yeah.
And, you know, the thing is, you solved his problem because the speed of how quick you can close with creative finance. You don't have to have appraisals and inspections that tie down and especially when we buy houses like what you bought a pretty house.
Right.
So it just maybe wants to change the color of the paint, or maybe, you know, modify it to your personal liking, but it is turnkey ready, a lot of these houses. So that's the one thing wonderful about it, where sure, you could get inspection. I definitely would on a super house that hasn't been, but it needs a ton of work. But on a beautiful house like that, maybe you could have your contractor go through it. But these are just all the delays that kind of slow down a sale or completely just stop the sale altogether. So the speed of how quickly we can close and the numbers that you just explained, you still have a really good margin of profit.
Yeah,
So,
we actually agreed on a purchase price of 110.
yeah.
And just as I said, conservatively 130 to 140 is what I could get for it, as is. And
Right.
since we moved in, we've done some modifications. So that number only just goes up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and that's the one thing that's great about it too, because you could customize it to your own. You own the home. This is not something where you're there renting or this is your house.
And now you have the money to put into the house to make it your, you didn't just break the bank trying to get the, this, that, and the other thing to make that happen. So that's really cool too.
Yeah. And if you think about, if you had to go get a regular, FHA mortgage or some other mortgage, you need a whole bunch of money down. You need all this taxes up front. You need all this other crazy stuff. And this is just a lot easier. So what a story. So how long have you been in there now for?
We closed on, I believe it was August 16th. So
Cool.
it's been since then, and things have kind of just been moving since. So it was kind of even more relieving to be able to do this creatively.
Yeah.
Because going the traditional route, we closed on that deal maybe 7 to 10 days tops. Traditionally, we might have had to take 45, 60 days to get through everything to finally move in. So it was great to have to just focus on moving in versus the waiting process of what it is to buy a house traditionally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the one thing about it. A lot of people, they can't believe how quick we can close opposed to a conventional. It's difference of night and day. So that's awesome. So that lead came into your group, and they work out the numbers. The numbers don't work. They don't make sense for a wholesale deal because the seller wanted too close to retail, where if you were to wholesale, you need to have a big spread in there because you're going to sell it to somebody else. So the numbers don't necessarily work out very well for a wholesale deal. A lot of times now, like what Kaleef was saying, they're going to take that lead, they're going to give it off to a realtor. And if the realtor can't get the listing, maybe they don't want to list it with a realtor. And that happens a lot, guys. Realtors are great. We love them too. We got a lot of friends that are realtors, but there's a lot of folks who just don't want to list it with a realtor for one reason or another. And the fact that we can buy the property as is, which is key, if they leave a couple sofas behind or things like that, we could take care of that for you. Where, if you're selling in the market, they usually have to be pretty well.
Everything freshly painted, any holes in the wall, painted. Yeah, it's a lot. And then right now too, on top of pandemic, people love not having everyone walking through their house, so we can just do things virtually. So.
Well, and if you think about it, you bought the house. You're the only one that had to see the house. There wasn't, like Jenn said, an open house where 28 people trample through the house with COVID right now. You get to walk in there yourself and make a deal. So the numbers don't work for your wholesale deal. Kaleef gets creative.
Yep.
Figures out a win for the seller. The seller wants to get that $20,000, but the seller has some flexibility on when he needs to get that money. But he's happy that he can move to Texas. He's got his $5,000 to help him move. And he's got somebody who's going to take excellent care of the property, but it's not even his anymore. So he's completely removed of all the liabilities and responsibilities because now he's turned it over to Kaleef. And Kaleef is going to continue to make the payment on the underlying debt to that bank. So the neat thing about those creative deals too is if you get a 30-year mortgage, the way those are amortized, in the very beginning, you're paying a lot of interest, very little principal. But when you get into these deals and these creative deals, they could have already had 30 that 30-year mortgage. If they've paid the first 5 years, 6 years, most of that's the interest. As the loan gets older, you're starting to pay a lot more principal. So that's the one neat thing about it too, is he didn't have to go out and get a 30-year mortgage where he's already dipped into this one. That's already been a lot of that front end interest already been paid. So
yeah, that's a good point.
That's fantastic. So I guess my question is, how has that changed your real estate business now? Are you starting to look at deals wholesale and creative too?
Yeah. So I think how it's I'd say conservatively doubled the deals that I look at that come in through my lead flow. because I'm not so much worried about, if they have a mortgage on it, because we have options on what we can do there. If they're needing the money right up front, how we could work that out, or if they have some flexibility, how we can work that out, instead of just, again, either abandoning that lead or sending it to a realtor hoping you may get a kickback if they're able to get the listing. So I can say it's just another set of glasses, I guess, if you will, when you're sorting through leads. Like, okay, I can look a little closer at this one to see how I can structure this to make this happen and create a win-win, for everybody involved. So, I mean, it's done nothing but increased, the efficiency, I'd say, of my marketing dollars. Leads we usually would toss away, my first year of doing this, because I didn't even know there's an opportunity there.
And I did the same thing ourselves for years. Jen and I did that. And I just look back and think about like, all of those leads that we threw away, that there were deals inside those leads.
Yeah.
We just didn't know any better.
Didn't know better.
And so when we started diving into this territory, probably like 5 years ago, of learning this creative financing and how this is all keyed together, and then like what you kind of did, just take action. And then, once you do that and you realize you can become more efficient, and you don't have to go out and get a ton more leads. It's actually almost hurting you because you can't spend enough time looking at all of them.
Right.
You're just trying to rip through them just to find that one.
Spending money.
Where now, we can work on a lot less leads, which we still have a ton. But we work on a lot less, and we just became a lot more efficient with them, because it's really about not how many leads you get, it's about the conversions.
Yep.
How many of those leads you could turn into deals. And that's where I think a lot of, you've got more plays now in your playbook. And that's why we call it the Creative Finance Playbook, is because once you have, if you play and you just run up the middle every play, you're not going to be very successful. But if you have a lot of different options, you're going to be a lot more creative and have more ways to help your seller, help yourselves, help your end buyers, and then obviously help your family get a home. I mean, what a story.
Yeah.
And we had some comments. I got to give you some praise again. Thank you for bringing that up about the LLC. Somebody wrote in here below saying that they threw out their driving for dollars because a couple of them were LLCs. So they're shaking their head now.
Yeah, no, go dumpster diving. There's money in there.
Yeah. And, that's the thing too, is right now, guys, especially now, if you find an LLC, you might find a landlord who's just sick and tired of being a landlord.
Especially, yeah.
And now is an opportunity where, I mean, we are in the middle of working a deal in Pittsburgh from us right now. And the gentleman got the house vacant, and he's like, and I know what's going on right now and how hard it is to evict people. And, it's just time to start selling some of my houses. And this is going to be the first one to sell. He owns 25, and he's going to sell it to us on terms, which just opens up the doors when these other ones become vacant. If this experience goes well for him and he's very happy, we have 24 more opportunities.
Yeah.
That's what's really, really cool. So I love LLCs because maybe they want to sell some properties too. Yeah, I mean, but once again, you got to turn the stone that nobody else really looks over.
You
for
remember
sure.
the name of the book that you had read, and you said it kind of at least stuck your toe in the water with creative financing. It didn't help you do any deals, but at least kind of like showed you.
Yeah, it was called Flip by Nick, Nick Ruiz, Ruiz. It was game changing because it just broke it down conceptually. And I think the couple of years of inaction was because he broke it down so matter of fact. I'm just like, there's no way. There's no way. But
well, it's also one of those things until someone can kind of walk you through it.
Yeah.
That's what I found, because I was like, we're gonna what?
Because I remember when I first learned about this stuff, I'm like, babe, you'll never believe what we can do. We don't have to go to the bank anymore to buy houses. And she's like, well, what are we just going to pay cash for them? I'm like, no, it's called creative finance, and this is going to be the greatest thing ever.
Terms. I'm like, what is a term?
She was looking at me like I had, and probably because of how excited and how fast I was talking, I probably did.
But you've always been somebody that loves out of the box, like non-traditional. He's just, if it's like everybody's going this way, he's going that way. And that's just how he's been since ever.
Well, I mean, I've been buying Bitcoin for like the last 4 years when she thinks I'm crazy for it, but now all of a sudden it's looking a lot better.
Yeah, when you're buying it was monopoly money when you started, right?
Yeah. Now it's turned into real money.
And then what is it called to pay the other person's mortgage?
A blessing? No.
To both of you, right?
Man, um, I guess. I mean, we keep up the. I don't even know if I gave him a name for it. I use we continue to service the debt that you have on the house.
I like that. Yeah, because you don't want
And they
to
like that.
subject to or wrap around. And sometimes it just gets them, whoa, wait, what's going on? But I like that a lot.
Yeah, because if you say I'm gonna buy it on a wrap or a wraparound mortgage,
I'm thinking about like
or
a food, like a
yeah,
wrap. Like,
if I'm gonna buy your house subject to, guys, you're gonna lose the seller and you're gonna lose that deal because you're talking in terms that they don't understand.
yeah.
You know, you're gonna let them know that we're gonna buy the house, we're gonna do all the paperwork now, and then we're gonna continue servicing the debt
Servicing the debt. I love
until
that.
we get it cashed out later on, and that's really how you do it.
We've also said payments on your behalf to
Mhm.
the bank. You know, we've been, oh, what bank is it? Okay, Bank of America will make payments on your behalf to Bank of America. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Or Joe even gave me a good one, when I was going through some coaching with him, is just, we're gonna borrow from the bank of Joe and Jenn.
Right.
Understand that. Like, oh.
Yeah. Well, that's how I actually did our first creative finance deal. He was having a hard time understanding it. The seller's name was Steve. I said, okay, well, Steve, instead of me paying Bank of America every month, I'm going to pay Bank of Steve every month.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay you this much per month. And he was like, got it.
Well, I think because we do this every day, all day. So to us, we always throw all this jargon around. But with an everyday person who maybe has a different, career, that they don't even have time to try to understand what we're trying to say. So just break it down simply for them and not overwhelm because they're already trying to sell their house, which is stressful enough.
Well, and I think that's the point too. You made it very well. You communicated very well across your point of what was happening and what you're going to do. I love the term servicing the debt. They're understanding that you're buying the house, but you're going to continue to pay their payments. So that's
nothing has to change other than I'm paying instead of you. And
right.
Usually you break it down that bare bones. It's where do I sign,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the thing is, I always say too, with doing creative finance, guys, is it's not going to work for everybody, and that's okay. But the people who you will do business with are going to love the fact that you're here to help them. And, that deal would not have worked for any other investor besides Kaleef. Everybody else throws that in the trash.
Yeah.
Or, if they send it to the realtor and the realtor walks through and says, this might need paint. And the guy says, hey, I don't want to paint and I need $5,000 right now to move to Texas. A lot of times that doesn't work. So,
Right.
Great job. So one of my favorite questions, last one, what's your best advice to someone who wants to get into the business?
Honestly, mentorship is the elevator to success. Early on, after reading that book, fear now I know is fear now had set in, and that's where the inaction came from. And kind of the universe put in that class in front of me. I think I've heard a wisdom key somewhere is that you don't have to find a mentor. Mentor finds you when you're ready. So when you're ready, that's what I think is going to expedite your success in this, and it's going to give you a lot of free lessons. You can learn the lessons, but is it going to be money essentially, or is it going to be time that teaches them to you? And I've learned that mentorship and investing in that, as well as systems within real estate, is going to make it materialize a lot faster for you. A lot of the methods out there work. Driving for dollars is great, but if you don't have a good follow-up system for those leads, it's kind of all for nothing, or someone to walk you through them. So I'd say mentorship in some capacity. I have a ton of real estate mentors on YouTube and Instagram that don't even know that I exist, but just finding a mentor and kind of sticking to that plan until you get that thing going, and then kind of veering off to get a little bit more creative, I think is the best way to go. That's my opinion, but I've met people that got into real estate because they've had a house, they had to relocate, and didn't have a playbook. So they just ended up renting the house, and boom, you're in real estate now.
Right.
So everybody's situation is different, but if you're looking to get into this from, kind of the 9 to 5 deal, some sort of mentorship is key, because it's going to expedite it for you, and conserve the money you're going to waste trying to figure it out on your own, trying to, go to Google University and YouTube University and piece things together.
a lot of time to make it go anywhere, I feel,
For sure.
The elevator to success, that's spot on. Anytime that we've really invested in ourselves and in our business, we just like right up a couple floors. So otherwise we're like huffing and puffing on the stairs. I'm like, why are we not getting anywhere? And it's once you plug that in and play, wow.
But, and I think it's the same thing. We've been doing this for a long time, and we still are constantly in, mastermind groups, and it's
growth mindset for sure.
We found ourselves with the same thing. A lot of other successful real estate investors, and just hearing what they take. Now, what they do might not work for us, but you might grab some nuggets out of there that are really good that can work for you. So maybe you're not going to reinvent what you do, but maybe there's a few tweaks that you can make that are just super beneficial. And that's where I think the really key is the masterminding. And that's why when I heard you originally on that podcast, I was like, my goodness, this guy is great. And here's like, I could hear deals screaming from you. So that's why I was like, I got to talk to this guy. And then, like I said, come to find out you're a fellow Rochesterian. So like I said, that vibe was definitely going. So where do you do, and this is a bonus for you guys, okay? The last question was the last question. Here's some icing on top of the cake, because we've been taking up so much of this man's time, and we are so appreciative for him to be here. And we're definitely going to have you back on later on.
For sure.
Where marketing goes, because everybody always wants to know, where are you going to get the leads from? Where am I going to get the leads from? Everybody, that's like the number one thing. Where are the leads at? So I heard you mention you did mailers. I heard you mention you did some Facebook. What else are you doing?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess where the deals are hiding.
Yeah.
My opinion, I mean, the best is the if you can find a good absentee vacant list, that's going to be, in my opinion, the best, because once you reach out to those sellers, it's going to unlock a whole lot of other problems that they need solved. The main problem is finding a house that's vacant, that somebody owns that doesn't live there. Those are gold mines. Not to, I know we're at the end, but I had another deal, same list, absentee vacant. Come to find out, the house, there's 16 grand in back taxes. The house was worth almost 40. The guy said, "I'm glad you called me. I was just going to let the city have it back. You pay the back taxes, it's yours." It's and that's that same type of list. You never know. I got a house for 16 grand that's worth 40. I flipped it for 24 grand in a wholesale deal, and I was able to take care of that guy's taxes. I got the spread in the middle, and it was all because of that same targeted list. In my opinion, that's the best list, because I'd look for absentee vacant, and then another layer came is, there's back taxes, or, you find out there's a back water bill. It's just I guess the tumbler lock, right? You unlock a couple of them and it unlocks more for you.
Now, how would you think of finding those lists? Did you just think of that on your own, or is that part of your mastermind group, or are you just a super genius?
No. So that was part of mentorship. They gave me a couple of list ideas, and I found a list broker. Was able to break that down to get those two lists, layered them, and just reached out. In hindsight, I should have not sent, that 500 or 1,000 postcards, but you scale that back and follow up with them, and it'll do better for you. For me, it was a little bit overwhelming at first, and then I learned to scale back. But if you can, send 200 or 300 every couple of weeks and follow up with them, 3-4 times, you'll find deals in there for sure.
Yeah.
But you're saying hundreds, because I know some people, they'll mail 5, they'll mail 10, probably because they're a little nervous. But I mean, you've got to mail quite a few to get some responses coming back. 5 to 10, you're not,
yeah. Small number. And you're just to your point, right? You just buy, say, just a absentee list, and that's it. Industry standard, no matter what you're doing for direct marketing, a key for you guys just starting out, direct mail, the response rate is about 1%. And then of that 1%, maybe 0.25% are actually going to be motivated to sell. So by layering these lists, the more layers of perceived problems on your end, increases your response rate. A person with 2 or more levels of motivation is going to increase your response rate.
Absolutely. Sure. So you're looking for folks who have situations going on, and you're actually out looking for them. So the best leads are the ones that kind of, they say reach out to you, but you plant the seed first, like, hey, here I am, and I'm interested in buying your house, but you're finding people who are already in a kind of somewhat of a stressful situation. Gentleman going to give his house to the city for free just because he owes 16,000 in back taxes, and then obviously here you are to get that situation turned around, also helping out the city because the city doesn't want to own houses. Those houses that are condemned turn into issues more than they are a benefit to the neighborhood. Yeah. So with that being the case, you're helping out the city, you're helping out the community, you're helping out a seller, you're helping out a buyer who's going to get that house and do whatever they are. Maybe they're going to keep it for themselves or landlord or whatever the situation is. But once again, we get some people who reach out to us on Facebook saying, hey, let somebody else buy the houses. Guys, there's millions and millions of houses around. The one thing about it is, though, what we do is we help the community. We improve it. And that's the one thing about being a real estate investor that I don't think they get enough credit for. I know a lot of these houses that we buy are usually in a really nice neighborhood, and they're that one house that's just, needs a lot of love.
How many times we've been thanked, oh my gosh, you finally did something with this house. It's
Right.
sitting here, it's an eyesore, a problem.
We've got a situation right now. We got the house in Albany. We're waiting to close on it.
Oh, goodness.
And the poor neighbor next door, the house has been vacant for a few years. This little lady next door called me because she found out my phone number. And the neighbor's house, the house we're buying, trees fell onto her house years ago. And because it broke off, it's huge trees. And now they're, terrified because these other branches are kind of leaning over their house. And she's like, I'm terrified to sleep in my bedroom.
There's nor'easter coming through, so she's a little worried. We're trying so hard to get this thing.
So we are waiting to close on it. And that's when the first things are going to be done.
Yeah, so you forget, you're really connecting. I mean, there's so many more people than just the house, right? We talked about that. It's real estate, but they're real people, real problems, real relationships. And the more that you can really dig in to find out how you can help solve them, you're really doing a lot of good. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and to your point, Joe, I think earlier on in the interview you made a point about other investors just come in, and evaluate a house and give folks a number. A nugget I want to give to your followers, which I do each and every time, is anytime I schedule a walkthrough with a seller and I sit down with them, before I even make them an offer oftentimes, and I get back to the lab and work the numbers, I go to the Dollar Tree, I buy a pack of thank you cards for $1, and I handwrite them a thank you card for meeting with me and mail it to them. And even if they don't accept my offer initially, they'll see as these other investors walk through the different touch points and how you deal with them. And I've gotten quite a few deals where they say, you weren't even the highest offer. But you recap, y'all recapped the walkthrough, their concerns and what they were trying to get accomplished in that thank you card. And that's a personal touch that's, for me, been the difference maker on quite a few deals where I wasn't nowhere near the highest offer, but I came across more genuine and weren't treating them like a transaction. So that's a key, I would say, for most people to help you with conversions is, just write them a thank you card. Literally, once you get home and throw it in the mail, you're 35 cents in on a thank you card, and just like you said, it equals a common check at the end if you're able to get it closed. So
and the thing is,
I love
that is awesome, because I always think that a lot of folks, talk about going the extra mile, and that's going the extra mile where a lot of other investors don't even go the first mile. You know what I mean? They don't even make it the full way. So the fact that you hit that and then exceeded their expectations by sending them a thank you card for their time, and you address them the situation in the card, and you're thoughtful, that you're not even, the very best offer, but you're a great person with a decent enough offer to where they're comfortable with you. And the comfort comes with the value to it.
You're
There's a lot of value.
Know, like, and trust factor, which you don't have a lot of time to do. So just like you said, just go the little extra mile. It takes maybe 5 minutes to write it down real quick, throw it in your mailbox and move on. And that could make a deal. I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's literally from the notes I took with them on the phone. So it's literally no extra work than just transcribing it onto a thank you card. And they're like, wow, he's really listening, down to, I had a lady that wanted to just move closer to her grandkids, hey, I'm looking forward to closing on your house so we can get you closer to the family, and ultimately that's her motivation and reason for selling. The money, she doesn't really care about the money,
Yeah.
It's just getting that problem solved, and that's huge, which I can say a lot of investors miss because they just come in and it's just, well, we can pay up to 70% of what it's worth minus the work. This is my number.
Right.
I've had people say, "Hey, you just wrote a number on the business card and left." What?
Oh my God.
I bet you they didn't get that deal.
No, and that's the thing. The funny thing is that the guy was my partner. So,
Oh,
and he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I can't get these people." He thinks I'm better than him at rapport, and that's literally all I'm doing. I did nothing different but write a thank you card.
it's sometimes, guys, it's the small things that make the big differences, right?
Yeah.
And think of how thoughtful that is. You don't really get thank you cards in the mail anymore.
No.
You might get a thank you text message. You might get a thank you email, like, whoa.
Right.
A thank you card that gets mailed to our house. Like,
especially recapping the point, like, to get you closer to your grandkids, like, definitely.
Yeah, and just handwrite it, and it's literally like like an invitation that somebody would send you that so they're getting it thinking already it's from somebody they know, hand addressed to them, and they read through it and they're like, oh wow.
Well, I already know if we had a house for sale, I would let you buy it. I'd send it to you, but, well, no, you're awesome. Once again, and guys, if you are watching this live, you need to be following this man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where can we find you? Do you want to shout out where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, on Facebook, Kaleef Williams, that's me. If you're in the Metro Detroit area, I would like to buy and or sell your house. I'm at Kaleef Buys Homes on Facebook. Website is kaleefbuyshomes.com. As Joe said, I'm in the credit restoration space as well. My moniker on Instagram is Coach with a K, Koach, Chameleon, Kamillion on Instagram. And I'm also on YouTube, same name, Coach Chameleon, but add financial. You can find me on YouTube and give different tips and tricks of how to, get off the old beaten path, make money online and things of that nature. Because I feel like this is valuable information that everybody can pick up and utilize. It just takes some time, no different than getting a job and, having to do that training learning curve. It's no different in going into business for yourself. There's a learning curve. You just got to kind of figure out how to navigate that until you get it consistent.
Right. And are you a full-time real estate investor? Do you have a day job?
Yep. I do this full time.
He does. I knew that answer, guys, but
we'll have to bring you back on and we'll talk about what that looks like, because I think there's a lot of like, what do you do all day? And I know it's been a little bit of a journey here with us, and we got the 2 kids remote learning. So I'd love to hear how you structure your day and just kind of paint that picture next time. So
we'll I would love to.
Back on.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, well, once again, guys, you need to be following Kaleef. He is awesome. Drops tons of motivational, inspirational, a lot of funny, hilarious stuff too.
Yeah, I'm dying laughing at his memes and his
sense of humor on top, on point. So you guys are definitely need to follow him because he's awesome. So thank you so much, Kaleef. We really appreciate you coming on. We are definitely going to have you back. We want to have.
Thank you for being our first.
Yes.
Yeah. No, and I want to give it, give it back and edify you guys. I mean, these folks here are my virtual family. Like literally, we're from the same town, and with the pandemic, we haven't been able to sync up and physically get to meet each other. But I mean, they're completely transparent. They're telling you exactly what they're doing it play by play, like what they're doing for free. People charge thousands of dollars for, and you don't know the value that they're dropping. Like these little truth bombs that we're giving you guys, like I've paid thousands of dollars to learn. And, Joe opened up the playbook for me just off the strength that he said, hey, I help you and that's going to help me, and that's kind of how I operate. I give this stuff to you guys and it just comes back. So if you guys aren't following these guys, follow these guys, tap in, follow what they're doing, because they're literally walking you through the stuff that we run into, good, bad, and ugly. It's, the checks are cool, but what's more important to me is what problems you're going to run into and how to navigate out of those. And that, money not going out is the same thing as money coming in. And you get that with these guys, kind of walking you guys through this with, buying, selling homes, as well as if you want to get into investing. So again, I love what you guys are doing. It's just as inspiring. I have my post notifications on for when you guys get stuff going, because I like to tune in and, you know, hey, I didn't think about it that way, or you know, that's inspiring, because I mean, you guys just made the decision to do it one day. There's no difference between any of us outside of the amount of time we've been doing it.
Yeah, it's been 11 months for me full time now. I walked away from my W-2 March 12th of last year was my last day at my job, and it was a great job. I was kept going up the corporate ladder, but it's been 11 months almost to the day, and it's been really great adventure. So it's been cool. And you know, I learned a lot today from you.
Yeah, we did.
So that's the whole point of doing these, guys.
Yep.
You learn from everybody in your tribe and your family, and Kaleef is family. So you better believe when he comes up to Rochester. And if you don't know, guys, they have garbage plates here. They're famous. They're fantastic. They will definitely be one of those things after you have maybe a beer or two, but
yeah, for sure.
but they are famous. So the next time he's in town, COVID's gone. I know we're going. So Kaleef, once again, thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you for dropping all of these nuggets of information.
Yeah, there's
these were the gold nuggets, guys. So write the stuff down. Go back. We're gonna leave this on there so you guys can continue to watch this, because
it's on YouTube.
And it's gonna be up on YouTube. So you're not gonna want to miss this. So thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll be chatting soon. Thanks, partner.
Bye.
Bye.